Hi, thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we will be looking at the first part of the book, The Matter with Things by Iain McGilchrist. There's actually 2 volumes to this and they're equally heavy, so you can use them to work out as well. So I'm just through with the first part, which is 380 pages. So just going to talk about that first part. So humans and other sentient organisms have a brain with 2 hemispheres, connected by a structure called the corpus callosum. Contrary to the popular belief, the 2 hemispheres are not concerned with different things like language or emotions. They're both concerned with everything, but they just take different approaches, leading to different experiential worlds. So the left hemisphere of the brain focuses more on detail, is more logically oriented, looks at the foreground and seeks assurance, while the right hemisphere tries to understand the whole, the world as a whole, and it has a much more sophisticated understanding of reality. The reason why we evolved to have 2 different hemispheres is that in order to be effective, we needed to attend to the world in both sort of different ways at once. And McGilchrist proposes that over the past 3.5 centuries, our worldview has largely relied on the left hemisphere, prioritizing the sort of more fragmented and everything that can be measured and studied. And it is the societal sort of focus on the left hemisphere. It's rigid, detached, machine-like cognition that is highly problematic in his view. So while the scientific approach has led to significant technological advancements, it has also had destructive effects on human civilizations and also the environment. So McGilchrist argues that the holistic and open and also more paradox-tolerant worldview of the right hemisphere is more reliable than the reductionist or narrow view of the left hemisphere. So that is a reduced to the max summary of the contents of the first part of this book. Most knowledge about the 2 hemispheres comes from split brain patients or those with some sort of brain damage or a neurological condition or cognitive difference. So the author provides numerous examples of brain lesions and their consequences on human experience, both from his own experience as a psychiatrist and citing a lot of literature. So, for example, when the right hemisphere is impaired, people's perception, cognition, and way of being change so much that their world becomes unrecognizable. In extreme cases, people with right hemisphere brain lesions neglect the whole left side of their body. So, hemispheric preconditions shape our perception and also our point of view, and in turn, our point of view shapes our understanding of the world. So, while that seems obvious, it is worthwhile attending to, because seldomly do we question our perception of reality and just take it as given. We simply assume that everybody else has the same neurological preconditions as ourselves and therefore the same views. I personally found great value in this book, and I share Iain McGilchrist's view with regard to most of his arguments. As an autistic individual, however, I need to address something that, in my opinion, might amount to a logical fallacy. I take issue with the pathologizing language that Mr. McGilchrist employs at some points in his book, and also the causal links that he seems to be making between neurodivergence and in his view, increasingly impoverished and endangered Western society. In my view, I think that there might be a causal fallacy here. There certainly might be correlations, but I'm not sure if there's a causation. So I'd like to submit that neurodiverse individuals have and continue to contribute to the development of not only theory but the arts and science, precisely because of their different experiential worlds. So they do so not only by being objects of study in their sort of disease, but by their own creative and also intuitive contributions. So rather than condemning, the autistic community to be the problem, or to infer that they're part of the reason why everything is wrong with the modern Western world, we should probably attempt to instead regard neurodivergent populations as part of the potential solution to, our problems. In my view, the frequent occurrence of autism might well not be an indicator for, but a consequence of what is wrong with modern society. The way I experience autism, and there are as many ways to experience it as there are autistic individuals, in my view, the main problem is sensory overload. So being autistic, I, living in a modern Western culture, despite all its amenities, I have to live rather secluded, because there is so much sensory overload. And if I do not carefully economize my energy, my symptoms get aggravated instantly and my nervous system tends to break down altogether. So this has resulted in repeated episodes of exhaustion and also clinical depression in the past, and greatly impacted not only my personal but also my professional life. So all these concerns that I have with the book are particularly confirmed in the author's treatment of the chapter on autism and schizophrenia. And I'm going to give you an example. So when referring to schizophrenic and autistic individual, he writes, think about that quote, using pathologizing language in this way, an actual autistic philosopher could only ever be a pseudo-philosopher. So we would a priori dismiss any contribution that they might make to the field because of their neurodivergence. So the observation that hemispheric differences create different versions of reality in individuals is certainly valuable. Not only does it allow us to explain, and have empathy for the different behavior of neurodivergent individuals, but it also helps neurotypical individuals to appreciate different viewpoints and draw inspiration from them. Describing symptomology in such depth and length is of great help, and some of this information should probably be part of every standard education, in my opinion. But there's a danger. I think it's that we might flat out deny individuals with a different point of view the ability to make a constructive and maybe also valuable contribution based on their neurodivergence. So while the observation that we seem to veer towards, a left hemisphere dominated world, especially in the Western culture, rings true, I think that lump sum statements such as our culture is becoming more autistic are difficult. And they're difficult in more ways than one. This goes beyond using pathologizing language. It sort of amounts to framing, And once again, autistic and schizophrenic individuals are by implication being sort of accused or implemented in somehow being complicit in bringing down our culture. And this is, in my point of view, not just sad but harmful, and could hardly be the way that the right hemisphere would argue. Statements like these clearly point to some bias in the author, I think, or a blind spot. And I think it's kind of ironic that the very thing that Iain McGilchrist hoped to shed light on with his work, he doesn't seem to be aware of in himself. So as a matter of fact, I would like to propose a new research project that focuses on the question whether ego-mindedness or the sort of the attachment or the propensity to be attached to ego consciousness is more prevalent in neurotypical populations compared to neurodivergent populations. Because my intuition is that neurotypical individuals are much more prone to be attached to their ego than autistic individuals, because autistic people simply are too busy processing the sensory overload coming at them, which is why non-essential sensory data is being neglected. And with non-essential sensory data, I mean things like small talk or understanding social cues, keeping eye contact. So those are all the items that could and are easily being misread to indicate lack of empathy in autistic people. I think that's probably the worst thing. This lack of empathy that autistic people are labeled with is very unfortunate. I have to tell you, I was diagnosed autistic at a very late age, but I think I can safely say that I'm probably more empathetic than a lot of people that I've gotten to know in my life, and I think it's just heartbreaking to me personally when I read something like this repeated over and over again. So I'm actually going to put this book aside for a while, and I have to digest, my first impressions before I read on. I want to say that I really value Mr. McGilchrist's work. I think I hope, I suppose, that his intentions are good. That's all I want to say to that, and I hope this was helpful to you in a way. And if you like this kind of content, please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.